Hit the like button, share your thoughts, subscribe, and tap the bell icon. On the distant world of Varian, a lush green planet with vibrant alien fauna, the Galactic Federation maintained a neutral outpost to foster peaceful relations between star systems. Among the many alien species occupying the Federation's ranks, the Varianites were the most revered. Tall, elegant beings with iridescent blue skin and a single glowing eye that could pierce through any illusion. They were known for their advanced technology and mental prowess. They possessed a calm and composed nature, often viewing other species as quaint, their ways old-fashioned, and their abilities subpar. And yet, they were tasked with sharing their world with humans. The Federation had sent a lone human diplomat to Varian to establish formal relations, a test of sorts. To the Varianites, the human was a puzzling enigma, an alien who seemed hopelessly inferior to the highly evolved species they had encountered throughout the cosmos. Standing in the gleaming chamber of the Varianite embassy, the human, an average man named Isaac Finch, gathered his belongings. His cargo consisted of little more than a simple duffel bag and an old-fashioned metallic briefcase, seemingly far from the sleek, telekinetically handled cases the Varianite officials were accustomed to. His modest appearance, dressed in a worn military uniform, added to the impression that the human might be a relic of a long-forgotten era. Sitting at a gleaming table, surrounded by 3 of the Federation's most esteemed diplomats, a pair of Varianite women named Lyra and Valaya, and their enigmatic assistant Nissa, who had a face concealed by a transparent mask, Isaac could feel the weight of their scrutinizing eyes upon him. Lyra, tall and regal, observed him with an aloofness that could freeze anyone in their tracks. Her translucent skin shimmered faintly in the room's low-light atmosphere, her every movement calculated and fluid. Valaya, on the other hand, wore an expression of polite boredom. As the head of the diplomatic faction on Varian, she often found herself enduring the tediousness of mundane species like humans. They could never fathom what it truly meant to experience the true advancement of the cosmos. Mr. Finch, Valaya spoke, her voice crisp with subtle amusement. We appreciate your interest in joining the Galactic Federation. However, I must admit we had not anticipated this arrangement. The Federation does not typically involve species such as yours in high-level diplomacy. You seem, dare I say, rather simple. The comment stung, but Isaac, accustomed to snide remarks and condescension, didn't flinch. I assure you, I'm capable of more than you think. Nissa, her voice coming through a soft translator embedded in her mask, gave a slight nod, but her words were indirect, polite. We've reviewed your background, Mr. Finch. Your civilization is young, your technology primitive by galactic standards. Are you sure you can handle the responsibilities that come with representing your people on such a grand scale? Isaac took a deep breath. He had trained for this moment for years, prepared to face the prejudices and misconceptions of the advanced races that held the keys to humanity's future. He wasn't about to let the opinions of a few alien diplomats determine his worth. I understand the skepticism, but don't mistake my humanity for weakness, he said with a calm but unwavering confidence. Humans have a unique trait that might surprise you. We adapt. The 3 Varianite diplomats exchanged glances, amusement flickering across their alien features. They hadn't heard the term adapt used in quite the same way before. Adapt? Lyra's voice dropped to an almost mocking whisper. How quaint. And how do you intend to do so? What unique skills do your people possess? From our reports, you do not possess telepathy, mind control, or even enhanced longevity. Your technology is crude at best. Isaac smiled, realizing the opportunity he had been waiting for. He stood and walked toward the large windows of the embassy, gazing out at the planet below, its sprawling forests and towering mountains bathed in the soft light of Varian's twin suns. We don't need telepathy, Isaac said, pausing for a moment to understand each other. We communicate in ways far more profound. Words, emotions, even the smallest gesture can mean everything. And as for our technology, it might not be as flashy or grand as yours, but it's practical. It works in the real world, under real conditions. The Varianite women exchanged skeptical looks, their glowing eyes narrowing as if weighing Isaac's words. Nissa, however, appeared intrigued, her head tilting slightly as she watched him intently. How intriguing, Valaya said finally. But tell me, human, why do you think you are here, representing your species? What makes you believe you could contribute anything worthwhile to the Federation? Isaac took a deep breath and turned back to face them. His voice was low but firm. Because humans have survived things no one else has. We've been through war, famine, and disaster. We don't stop. We don't give up. When faced with impossible odds, we find a way to win. Lyra's eyebrow arched slightly, and she leaned back in her chair. You claim to be resilient, but that is hardly enough to impress the Federation. Isaac looked at each of them with a steady gaze, then gave a wry smile. You'll see soon enough. For the first time, Lyra's expression faltered. There was something unsettling in Isaac's words, an unspoken promise of something they couldn't yet comprehend. As Isaac prepared to leave the room, he could sense their curiosity had shifted. The Varianites might have believed humanity was useless, but the spark of doubt was beginning to flicker. Isaac knew it would take time to prove them wrong, but he was confident that soon, they would learn that humans were far more than they appeared. The following day, Isaac was summoned to a grand hall at the heart of Varian's capital. The entire facility was a marvel of Varianite engineering. Smooth, crystalline walls that seemed to pulse with energy, gleaming structures that defied the laws of gravity. It was a testament to their superiority, an environment that made anything human-made seem antiquated by comparison. Isaac was escorted through the corridors, flanked by the same trio of diplomats, Lyra, Valaya, and Nissa. As they walked, Isaac couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment pressing on him. This wasn't just another diplomatic meeting, it was the culmination of his efforts, the moment he would either prove the worth of humanity or fail in front of the most advanced species in the galaxy. He entered the large chamber where the test would take place. The room was circular, with a transparent dome above them that allowed a breathtaking view of the sprawling city below. In the center, a strange device hummed quietly, its shape reminiscent of an orb, surrounded by a series of glowing energy beams. Do you understand what this is, Mr. Finch? Valaya asked, her voice cool and detached. Isaac studied the device, its surface shifting with colors and patterns he couldn't quite identify. I'm guessing it's some kind of test? Lyra's voice rang out with barely concealed sarcasm. Indeed, it will measure your capabilities, physical, mental, and your adaptability. We have no intention of wasting time on meaningless diplomatic rhetoric, Mr. Finch. We wish to see what humans can do. Isaac raised an eyebrow. I thought we were beyond tests by now. Shouldn't our word be enough? Not for a species as young as yours, Lyra replied with a small smile. Your kind hasn't proven itself yet. Not in any meaningful way. Isaac felt a stir of annoyance but pushed it aside. This wasn't about proving them wrong in petty ways. It was about showing them the strength of humanity's spirit. He knew he couldn't match their technology or mental powers, but he had one thing they didn't: sheer will. The Varianites led him to the center of the chamber, where a platform was illuminated by several beams of soft light. A series of holographic projections flickered into life, displaying symbols, numbers, and diagrams that were utterly foreign to Isaac. The test had begun. Valaya's voice echoed through the chamber, amplified by the sound system. The test will consist of 3 phases. First, a mental challenge. You must solve a complex puzzle that will require you to analyze and synthesize information at a level far beyond human capacity. Second, a physical challenge. You will face a simulated combat scenario designed to test your strength and agility. And third, a decision-making test. You will be put in a scenario where the lives of others are at risk, and your choices will determine their fate. Isaac took a deep breath. He had prepared for something like this. He had studied, trained, and done everything he could to survive this moment. He wasn't going to back down now. The first phase of the test began. The puzzle appeared on the projection, a complex tangle of interlocking shapes and numbers. Isaac's eyes darted across the symbols, trying to make sense of them. At first, the complexity of it overwhelmed him, But then, he did what he did best, he focused. He wasn't going to outsmart the Varianites, but he could use a different approach. He took a step back, allowing himself to think not just logically but creatively. In human history, there had been moments where the impossible had been solved not through brute force or calculation, but through thinking outside the box. Isaac's mind shifted gears, his hands moving across the holographic interface, rearranging the pieces not by algorithm, but by instinct. Lyra watched, her arms folded, but there was an edge to her gaze now. Less dismissive, more calculating. Valia's expression was unreadable, though there was a flicker of interest in her glowing eye. Nissa stood quietly, her mask betraying little emotion, but Isaac could sense she was studying him closely. Then, with a small click, the holographic puzzle shifted, the symbols aligning in a perfect pattern. The challenge was completed. Isaac exhaled sharply, his heart pounding, but he forced himself to keep his cool. He looked up at the three diplomats. "That's impressive," Valia said, her tone slightly softer than before. "It seems there is more to your mind than we expected." Isaac didn't respond. He didn't need to. The next phase of the test had already begun. The platform beneath him shifted, and in the blink of an eye, the room transformed. The walls faded into darkness, replaced by a dense forest under a blood-red sky. The ground beneath Isaac's feet felt soft, unstable. His senses heightened as a series of shadowy figures emerged from the trees. The simulated combat scenario was upon him. Isaac's military training kicked in instinctively. He knew he couldn't match the speed or strength of the Varianites, who could move with grace and power beyond what he could imagine, but he could use his surroundings. He darted toward a large tree, using it as cover as the figures closed in. The holograms surrounding him were designed to challenge his combat instincts, but Isaac's human adaptability took over. He wasn't fighting the shadows directly. He was outsmarting them, using the terrain to create distractions and force them into mistakes. Every move was calculated, every decision deliberate. Despite the overwhelming odds, Isaac persevered. He used the environment to his advantage, leading the simulations into traps that they couldn't avoid. It wasn't brute strength or superior technology, it was human ingenuity. When the combat phase ended, Isaac stood in the center of the room, breathing heavily, but still standing. Valia's lips curled into a thin smile. "It seems you've passed the physical challenge as well." Isaac wiped the sweat from his brow, feeling the eyes of the diplomats on him. "Not bad for a useless human," he muttered, though he knew the hardest part of the test was still to come. The final phase, decision-making. A holographic image materialized in front of him. A city under siege, flames consuming entire buildings. A group of alien civilians were trapped in the middle of it, their lives in Isaac's hands. The clock began to tick down. Lyra's voice cut through the tension. "You have a choice, Mr. Finch. Do you save the lives of these aliens, even if it means sacrificing your own people? Or do you prioritize your species over others?" Isaac's heart raced, his mind whirling. This was the ultimate test of his humanity. He knew that choosing one life over another wasn't simple. It never was. But the answer wasn't about calculations or algorithms. It was about doing the right thing. The holographic scene flickered before Isaac's eyes. An entire city engulfed in flames, smoke billowing through the air, and panicked civilians rushing through the streets. In the center of it all were several groups of alien civilians, people from a race Isaac had never encountered before. They were trapped in a collapsed building, their cries for help echoing in the simulated environment. Isaac could feel the weight of the choice in the air, pressing down on his shoulders. A countdown timer appeared in the corner of the hologram, ticking away with relentless precision. Every second felt like a lifetime. Lyra's voice echoed once more, a steady, almost detached sound. "You must decide, Mr. Finch. Do you save the alien civilians, knowing that doing so could lead to the loss of human lives? Or do you prioritize your own kind, sealing the fate of those who are not of your species?" Isaac's mind raced. The Varianites had given him a cruel choice. It wasn't a simple matter of choosing between lives. It was a matter of everything that defined his species, the ideals they held, their very humanity. Could he sacrifice innocent lives to save his own people? Or would he uphold the values that had made humanity different from so many others in the galaxy? He stood still, taking in the scene. His mind flashed back to Earth. Humanity was a species that had come from a place of struggle and conflict, but also of compassion. They had fought wars, yes, but they had also fought for peace. They had faced destruction, and yet they had rebuilt and moved forward. Isaac knew that humans weren't perfect, but they were capable of great acts of kindness and sacrifice. In the midst of the chaos, Isaac saw the faces of the trapped civilians. Alien faces? Yes, but faces of individuals with their own hopes, fears, and dreams. They weren't just nameless entities. They were living beings, and they were in need. With a deep breath, Isaac made his decision. "I choose to save them," he said quietly, his voice firm. The timer continued to tick down, but Isaac no longer felt the weight of the decision bearing down on him. He had made it, and now it was time to act. His fingers flew over the controls, manipulating the holographic system to bring up a detailed map of the city, identifying the safest and quickest route to the trapped civilians. Isaac's mind worked quickly, applying the tactics he had learned from his military training and his understanding of human resilience. Time was running out, and he had no room for hesitation. Humanity doesn't turn its back on those in need, Isaac muttered under his breath, his voice steady despite the overwhelming pressure. "We may be flawed, but we don't leave anyone behind." In the simulation, Isaac directed a series of rescue drones to clear debris and create a safe path for the trapped civilians. He coordinated a team of emergency personnel, represented by holographic projections, to reach the site. The human instincts for teamwork and cooperation kicked in, and Isaac began to issue orders as if he were in the middle of a real crisis. There was no time to second-guess, no time to question the choice he had made. The simulation seemed to respond, shifting and adapting to his decisions. The holographic civilians began to stir as the rescue teams made their way toward them, and Isaac could hear their faint cries of relief through the sound system. As the last of the debris was cleared away and the civilians were safely escorted to evacuation points, the timer hit 0. The simulation faded into silence. Isaac stood there, his breathing shallow, but his heart beating with a mixture of relief and tension. He had chosen. Now he would face the consequences. There was a long pause, during which Isaac couldn't help but wonder what the Varianites thought. Would they admire his decision? Or would they see it as weakness, a failure to prioritize his own people over others? Finally, Valaya's voice broke the silence. "You have made your choice," she said, her tone unexpectedly somber. "You saved the lives of those who were not your own, even at the risk of your people's safety. Such a decision is remarkable by your standards, but it is also a dangerous one." Isaac turned to face her, his expression calm but resolute. "It's not about the risk. It's about doing what's right. What good is a victory if it's won at the cost of our humanity?" Lyra, who had been standing in the corner, now stepped forward. Her eyes narrowed in a way that was difficult to read. "You claim that your species is different, that you are capable of doing things other species cannot. But that decision, sacrificing your own kind for others, shows nothing but weakness. The Federation does not reward such foolishness." Isaac didn't flinch. "Then perhaps the Federation is wrong." There was an unsettling stillness in the room as the diplomats exchanged looks. Nissa, who had been mostly silent throughout the test, now spoke, her voice low but thoughtful. "What you have shown us, human, is not weakness. It is something unexpected. You acted on a principle that is foreign to us. The Varianites are a species built on logic and efficiency, where every action is calculated to achieve the greatest possible result. But you, Mr. Finch, you chose compassion over calculation." Isaac met her gaze, surprised by the sudden shift in Nissa's tone. She had been the most skeptical of him, and yet there was a subtle acknowledgement in her voice. She wasn't mocking him. She was considering him. "Compassion is not a weakness," Isaac said quietly, his voice carrying more weight now than it had in the beginning of the test. "It's what makes us human." And I don't think it's something any species in the galaxy should dismiss. Valaya, who had remained silent for some time, now spoke again, her voice softening just slightly. Perhaps there is more to your species than we realized. Perhaps this compassion of yours has its place in the Federation. Isaac didn't respond. There was no need. The tension in the room had shifted. The Varianites had been forced to reconsider their assumptions, and they had seen a side of humanity that defied the expectations of their cold, calculating logic. As the chamber's walls began to glow with a soft blue light, signaling the end of the test, Isaac felt a sense of quiet victory. He had passed. Not because of his skills, his intelligence, or his strength, but because of something far more powerful, his humanity. The Varianites might have once believed that humans were useless, but now, they were starting to understand the true value of Isaac Finch, and, by extension, the entire human race. The soft blue light from the chamber walls dimmed, and the once bustling room fell into a heavy silence. Isaac stood at the center of the circular space, his mind still processing the aftermath of the decision he had just made. His pulse raced as he tried to steady himself, but the weight of the test had shifted the atmosphere. There was something different now, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. Lyra and Valaya stood with their arms folded, faces still unreadable but marked with the faintest hint of contemplation. Nissa, who had been mostly silent throughout the test, now observed Isaac with a look that was far more curious than skeptical. Mr. Finch, Valaya spoke first, her voice softer than it had been during the test, but still carrying an edge. I must admit, I did not expect such a decision. In all my years of overseeing the Federation's interactions with other species, I have never encountered such an unorthodox response. Isaac remained quiet for a moment, taking in the unexpected shift in Valaya's tone. I made the choice I thought was right. My people aren't perfect, but we strive to do what's best for others, no matter the consequences. That's something you'll find in every human. No matter where you go. Lyra scoffed slightly, but her expression lacked the usual scorn. Instead, it was thoughtful. You may claim compassion, but it is still a flawed path. You chose to put others before your own species. That is a dangerous precedent. What if the aliens you saved betrayed you later? What if your people, in their vulnerability, suffer because of your misplaced compassion? Isaac met Lyra's gaze without flinching. That's a risk I'm willing to take. We may be flawed, but we believe in second chances. We believe in redemption, in giving others the opportunity to change. Nissa stepped forward, her gaze more intense than before. But there's more to this decision than just compassion. Isn't there? I've been studying your species for some time now, Mr. Finch. It's not just that you made a choice that was unselfish. It's that you trusted that those you saved would act with honor. You trusted that your compassion could inspire others. Isaac couldn't help but smile at Nissa's insight. You're right. It's about believing in others, not just in yourself. If you can't believe that people can change, or that they're capable of doing the right thing, then what kind of future are you really building? The room fell silent again as the three Varianites seemed lost in their thoughts. For a long moment, Isaac wondered if he had pushed them too far, made too bold a statement, but the doubt quickly faded. He had said what he believed was true. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about trying to do the right thing in the face of adversity. And if the Varianites couldn't understand that, then perhaps they had more to learn than they realized. Finally, Valaya spoke, breaking the silence with a measured tone. Your actions have shifted our perspective on your species, Mr. Finch. Perhaps we were wrong to dismiss humanity as useless. Your ability to make difficult choices, despite the risks, shows a strength we had not anticipated. Isaac raised an eyebrow. You mean to say, you're reconsidering your assessment? Lyra's voice, though still cool, carried a rare note of respect. Your adaptability, your ability to act under pressure, and your belief in others. It all suggests that your species has the potential for greatness. There's more to humanity than just your technology or your physical strength. It's your ability to survive, to evolve, to rise above the challenges you face that makes you different. Isaac nodded. We don't always get things right, but we keep pushing forward. Every time we fall, we stand back up. And we help each other. That's what makes us human. The words hung in the air for a long moment, and Isaac could see the flicker of understanding beginning to form in the eyes of the Varianites. They were still calculating, still evaluating, but something had shifted, something fundamental. They weren't just seeing Isaac as a human diplomat anymore. They were beginning to see him as something more. "Mr. Finch," Nissa said, her voice soft but serious. "The Federation has always valued strength, logic, and precision. But what you've shown us today is that perhaps there is more to strength than just these traits. Perhaps humanity has something to offer that we've overlooked." Isaac wasn't sure how to respond. His heart was racing, a sense of hope building inside him, but he didn't want to get ahead of himself. The Varianites were a proud and calculating species. What they saw as weakness, they often discarded. But today they had seen humanity's strength. They had seen it in action in the choices Isaac had made. "You've passed the test, Mr. Finch," Valaya said, her voice steady now, "and your actions have earned you the respect of the Federation. We will be recommending that humanity be granted full membership in the Galactic Federation." Isaac's breath caught in his throat. He had done it. Against all odds, against the skepticism, against the judgment of one of the most advanced species in the galaxy, humanity had proven its worth. Isaac had proven humanity's worth. "Thank you," Isaac said, his voice thick with emotion. "You won't regret this. I promise you that." Valaya nodded once, her eyes unreadable but her expression now tinged with something softer, perhaps even a touch of admiration. "We will see, Mr. Finch. But for now, we will offer our assistance in ensuring that your species has the resources and guidance necessary to take its place among the stars. There is much to be done." As the meeting came to a close and Isaac was escorted out of the chamber, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride swelling inside him. He had faced down the impossible, stood firm in the face of overwhelming odds, and had shown the galaxy exactly what humanity was made of. The Varianites had thought humans were useless, but Isaac had shown them that humanity had a strength that couldn't be measured by technology or physical ability. It was something deeper, something that transcended everything they had known. Isaac Finch had just begun his journey, and humanity's future in the Galactic Federation was looking brighter than ever. The days following Isaac's successful test were a whirlwind of activity. The Varianites, though initially cold and distant, began to open up, extending a level of cooperation that Isaac hadn't anticipated. Meetings were scheduled with leaders from various factions of the Galactic Federation, and plans for humanity's integration into the greater galactic community were rapidly drafted. For the first time, humanity was being taken seriously, not as a lesser species but as one capable of contributing to the broader interstellar society. Isaac sat in his quarters aboard the Federation flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed anything he had ever seen before. The smooth walls of his room were bathed in the pale light of distant stars, casting long shadows on the floor. On the table before him was a holographic display, open communications with the leaders of Earth's United Nations and the top officials of the newly formed Earth Federation. As he watched the faces of the people who had long questioned his ability to represent humanity in these negotiations, he couldn't help but wonder how they'd react to the news. "Isaac," General Harper's voice crackled through the comms, the familiar sound a welcome relief. "We've been briefed by the Varianites. They've confirmed that you've passed their tests, and that humanity is now under serious consideration for Federation membership." Isaac leaned forward, his fingers tapping nervously against the surface of the table. "Yeah, General, but there's a lot to do before humanity gets in. They're willing to offer resources and protection, but there are conditions. We need to prove that we're more than just a curious species. We need to show that we can handle the responsibilities of being part of the galactic community." General Harper's expression softened, though there was still a hint of skepticism in her eyes. "What kind of responsibilities are we talking about here?" Isaac took a breath, the weight of the future suddenly feeling very heavy on his shoulders. "Well, for starters, the Varianites want us to prove we can coexist with other species, work alongside them, and contribute to galactic defense and diplomacy. It's not just about technology or military might. We need to show that humanity can integrate into their society and operate in harmony with other species that are vastly more advanced. Harper's lips pressed into a thin line. Do you think we're ready for that? I know humanity's resourcefulness, but we've never been part of anything like this before. We've been a planet isolated in the vastness of space. The Varianites have their own customs, their own ways of doing things. What happens if we can't meet their expectations? Isaac paused, considering the enormity of the situation. We have no choice but to try. The Federation is the future for us, Harper. We can't afford to be left behind. And we need to show them that despite everything, despite being a young species, we have the grit to make a place for ourselves. If we fail, the implication hung in the air like a sword over his head. Isaac didn't need to finish the sentence. The Federation's offer was an opportunity, and the consequences of rejecting it could send humanity spiraling back into isolation, leaving them vulnerable to whatever forces existed beyond the reach of the Federation's protection. Harper nodded slowly. Understood. We're behind you, Isaac. Whatever you need, we'll make it happen. Isaac gave a small nod, his fingers brushing over the table in thought. I'll keep you updated. I have a few more meetings to attend today, and there's a lot we need to sort out. The conversation ended, leaving Isaac with a sense of resolve but also a lingering anxiety. What had seemed like an impossible dream just weeks ago, humanity's place among the stars, was now a rapidly approaching reality. But with that reality came an immense responsibility, one that he wasn't entirely sure humanity was prepared for. The door to his quarters slid open, and Isaac looked up to see Valaya standing in the doorway, her eyes calm but with an expression of quiet authority. Behind her, Lyra and Nissa stood as well, their usual aloofness replaced with a kind of solemn seriousness. Isaac stood and greeted them, offering a slight nod of acknowledgement. I've just finished speaking with Earth's leadership. They're still processing everything, but it looks like we're moving forward with the Federation talks. Valaya stepped into the room, her presence commanding attention. I am pleased to hear that, Mr. Finch. But there is more to our agreement than what you've discussed with your people. Isaac raised an eyebrow. I figured there might be some fine print I missed. Lyra's voice was sharp. The Federation is not a charity. We will expect contributions from your species, not just in terms of resources, but in knowledge, military support, and diplomatic influence. You must understand that we do not simply accept any species into our fold without assessing their value. Your role is crucial, Mr. Finch, in ensuring that Earth is ready for this. Isaac felt the weight of her words settle into his chest. I understand, but if we're going to be part of this, we need to be given the tools to succeed. And that means we have to work together, humanity and the Federation. We need time to learn, to adapt. Nissa spoke for the first time, her voice calm but firm. Time is not something the Federation can offer indefinitely. If humanity is to become a part of this alliance, it must prove its worth swiftly. You have passed our initial tests, but now you will face challenges of a different kind. You will be expected to engage in diplomatic missions, contribute to galactic defense initiatives, and most importantly, prove that your people can adapt to a vastly more complex and dangerous reality. Isaac nodded slowly. We can handle it. We've always found a way to adapt. It's part of who we are. Valaya studied him for a moment, then spoke again. Very well. We will begin your training in the coming days. You and your people will be put to the test once more, but this time the stakes will be higher. Do not mistake our respect for your species for leniency. We expect results. Failure is not an option. Isaac met her gaze without hesitation. Understood. We'll do what it takes. The three Varianites exchanged looks, their expressions unreadable. But there was something in the air, something different, as though the path forward was no longer a distant dream but an impending reality. As they turned to leave, Valaya paused at the door, her voice softer than it had been before. Mr. Finch, you have earned our respect. But remember this. Being part of the Federation means taking on responsibilities beyond what you have ever known. Your species must be ready, or you will be left behind. With that, the door slid shut, leaving Isaac alone with his thoughts. The weight of the task ahead was clear now. Humanity had taken its first step into the galaxy, and now it was time to prove that they were more than just survivors. They had to show the galaxy that they could contribute, that they could adapt, and that they could thrive. As the stars outside his window seemed to shimmer with the promise of the future, Isaac felt a surge of determination. The journey had just begun. The first few weeks after Isaac's announcement to Earth's leadership were a blur of activity. The Federation had laid out a plan for humanity's integration into the galactic community, one that was rigorous and demanding. Isaac had been thrust into the role of ambassador, navigating diplomatic protocols, establishing alliances with other species, and preparing humanity for what was to come. The Varianites, true to their word, provided humanity with invaluable resources, advanced technology, weapons systems, and access to knowledge that had once been beyond their reach. But alongside this aid came an equally demanding set of expectations. The first major test came quickly, an urgent diplomatic mission to a distant system, one that had been embroiled in a conflict for decades. The Federation needed humanity to mediate, to bring an end to the fighting. Isaac was standing in the command room of the Federation flagship, looking out at the vast expanse of space. The stars seemed distant and unreachable, yet here he was in the middle of it all with the fate of his species, and perhaps the future of the Federation, resting on his shoulders. "Mr. Finch," Nissa's voice called from the doorway, snapping Isaac out of his reverie. She entered the room, her face as calm and composed as ever, but there was an unmistakable glint of concern in her eyes. "The Council has decided it is time for your first mission." Isaac turned toward her, a sense of unease settling in his chest. "I've been briefed on the situation. The Zrathians and the Ctherii are on the brink of war, right?" Nissa nodded. "Indeed, the Zrathians are a militaristic species, while the Ctherii are more pacifistic but highly technologically advanced. Both sides have been in conflict over resources in their system for over 70 years, and neither is willing to compromise. The Federation believes your species' ability to empathize and find common ground might offer a unique perspective. If you succeed, it will strengthen humanity's position in the Federation." Isaac's mind raced. This wasn't just a diplomatic mission. It was humanity's chance to prove that they were capable of bringing about change, even in the most volatile situations. If they failed, it would be a disaster. Not only would humanity's standing in the Federation be jeopardized, but the conflict could escalate into an interstellar war. He swallowed hard. "I'm ready. What's the first step?" "We've arranged a neutral space station for the talks. The Zrathians and the Ctherii have agreed to meet, but the situation is tense. Both sides are suspicious of your motives, Mr. Finch. You will need to navigate their mistrust, establish a dialogue, and find a way to broker peace." Isaac nodded, trying to steady his nerves. "Got it. I'll do everything I can to keep this from breaking down." Nissa studied him for a moment, then spoke with surprising warmth. "You have proven yourself to be more than just a diplomat, Mr. Finch. The Federation has seen your potential. This mission is important, but do not forget, you are representing humanity. Your actions here will have lasting consequences." Isaac felt the weight of her words settle over him. He wasn't just an individual on this mission. He was the face of humanity, and his actions would speak for all of Earth. "Understood," Isaac said firmly. The journey to the neutral station was short, but every minute felt like an eternity. Isaac stood with a small team of human diplomats, medical officers, and security personnel aboard the Federation ship. They had been briefed extensively on the cultural differences between the Zrathians and the Ctherii, but nothing could truly prepare them for the tension that filled the air as they approached the station. The neutral station was a sprawling structure, perched in the orbit of a barren moon. Its design was sleek and metallic, with large, open spaces where representatives from both factions could meet. The Zrathians, as expected, arrived first. Their towering figures, clad in dark, imposing armor, exuded an air of aggression. The Ctherii followed shortly after, their elegant forms and shimmering skin standing in stark contrast to the Zrathians' militaristic presence. Isaac took a deep breath as he stepped onto the station's bridge, flanked by Nissa and a handful of Federation diplomats. The tension in the room was palpable, each side glaring at the other with open distrust. It was a powder keg, and Isaac could feel the weight of it pressing in on him. "Welcome, Mr. Finch," a Zrathian ambassador, a broad-shouldered figure named Theric, said, his voice deep and gravelly. "I trust you will not waste our time with pleasantries. The Ktherii have already delayed this peace process for far too long." Isaac didn't flinch at the Zrathian's tone. He had to remain calm, neutral. "I'm here to facilitate a discussion, Theric. Let's focus on finding common ground." The Ktherii ambassador, a lithe being named Silas, stepped forward with a measured grace. "The Zrathians are the ones who refuse to share the resources in our system," Silas said, her voice cool and composed. "We have been patient, but their aggression knows no bounds." Isaac raised his hand, silencing both sides. "I understand that both of you have valid concerns, but if we keep fighting over past grievances, we'll never move forward. Let's focus on what we can do together to solve the current crisis. The resources are finite, yes, but the future of both your species is at stake here." For the next several hours, Isaac worked tirelessly to mediate the conversation, his mind constantly calculating, reassessing, and shifting tactics. He had to read between the lines, interpret body language, and find subtle ways to keep the dialogue from devolving into open conflict. The Zrathians were proud, stubborn, and unwilling to back down, while the Ktherii were patient but deeply hurt by the Zrathians' lack of respect. It was a delicate balance. At one point, the conversation reached an impasse, and it seemed like the talks were about to break down. The Zrathians were growing impatient, and Silas, though diplomatic, was clearly frustrated. Isaac could see the storm clouds gathering, the risk of failure looming larger than ever. Then an idea struck him. "I believe we can offer a solution that benefits both sides," Isaac said, his voice calm but firm. "The resources you're fighting over are not only valuable in the short term, but can be used to fuel long-term cooperation. What if we established a joint task force to manage and distribute these resources equitably, with oversight from the Federation? Both your species would benefit from the resources, and both sides would have a hand in its management." The room went silent. Both sides looked at him as if he were speaking an entirely different language. Isaac held his breath. "This isn't just about winning. It's about survival. You both want a future for your people. If you don't come together, there won't be a future for anyone." Theric, the Zrathian ambassador, looked as though he was about to reject the proposal outright. But Silas, the Ktherii representative, spoke up first. "It's an interesting idea, but I want assurances that the Zrathians will not use this opportunity to claim more than their fair share." Isaac nodded. "The Federation will ensure neutrality and fairness. Both sides will have equal representation in the task force, and both will have the right to veto any decisions that go against the terms of the agreement." After a long, tense pause, Theric grunted, his expression hard but contemplative. "We will agree to this, but only if the Ktherii are willing to honor the terms as well." Isaac exhaled slowly, the pressure in the room easing slightly. "Then we have an agreement." The first test had been passed, but Isaac knew that the true challenge was just beginning. The peace talks were only the first of many steps humanity would have to take to prove itself worthy of the Federation's trust. As the Zrathians and Ktherii began to discuss the finer details of the agreement, Isaac felt a wave of relief wash over him. It was small, but it was a victory, and sometimes that was all that was needed to start building something greater. The peace agreement between the Zrathians and the Ktherii was signed just days after Isaac's successful mediation. The neutral space station, once a symbol of tension and division, now stood as a monument to the power of diplomacy and the possibility of cooperation. The Federation praised Isaac's skill and humanity's contribution to galactic peace, and Isaac himself couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride. But beneath the surface, the weight of responsibility still pressed down on him. This was just the beginning, not the end. As he sat in his quarters aboard the Federation flagship, reviewing the final terms of the peace agreement, Isaac's mind drifted back to Earth. The mission had gone better than he'd expected, and humanity had proven that it could handle the complex challenges of interstellar diplomacy. But what came next? Earth was still far from ready to integrate fully into the Federation. They had made progress, but there were still hurdles to overcome, both political and cultural. And now, with this first success under his belt, the pressure to continue proving humanity's worth was greater than ever. Isaac had barely finished his thoughts when the door to his quarters slid open, and Nissa stepped in. Her calm, measured presence was a welcome contrast to the swirling storm of his mind. "Mr. Finch," she said, her tone as composed as ever. "The Zrathians and the Ctherii are both satisfied with the agreement. The Federation's representatives are already preparing to implement the next phase of resource management. Humanity's role in this will be crucial, and I trust you will help guide your people as they adjust to this new responsibility." Isaac nodded, standing to face her. "I'm glad to hear it, but there's still a long road ahead. The peace talks may be over, but now we have to work on ensuring the cooperation between the species continues. Trust doesn't come easily, especially after decades of conflict." Nissa's eyes narrowed slightly, the closest she ever came to showing concern. "You're right. Trust is hard-won. But you've shown us that humanity is capable of more than we expected. Your actions have earned the respect of the Federation, and more importantly, you've proven that humanity is a force for peace, not conflict." Isaac let the words settle. In all the chaos and pressure, it was easy to forget that what he had just accomplished was historic. Humanity had never been part of a galactic alliance before. This peace wasn't just a political victory. It was a sign of what was possible if they were willing to adapt and work together. "Thank you," Isaac replied, his voice quieter now, almost reflective. "I don't know if I can do it alone, though. Humanity isn't a single entity. We have a lot of work to do to bridge the gaps between us, let alone with other species." Nissa tilted her head slightly. "You don't have to do it alone. We are here to support you, Mr. Finch. The Federation will provide guidance and resources, but it's up to humanity to decide how to navigate its place in the galaxy." Isaac's gaze turned to the stars outside his window. The infinite expanse of space seemed both overwhelming and exhilarating. It was a constant reminder of how small humanity was in the grand scheme of the universe. And yet, in that vast emptiness, humanity had carved out a place for itself, through diplomacy, courage, and the strength to stand up for what was right. "I know," Isaac said, his voice gaining strength, "and I believe we will. Earth has a lot to offer, but more than anything, we have something that the Federation can't teach. The ability to hope. To believe that things can get better." Nissa remained silent for a moment, considering his words. Then she spoke, her voice softer than usual. "Hope is a powerful thing. It's what has sustained the Federation for centuries. And now, humanity has a chance to add to that legacy." Isaac's thoughts drifted to the people of Earth. The struggles they had endured, the moments of despair that had nearly shattered them, and the collective will to rise again. Humanity wasn't perfect, but that was precisely why they were strong. They knew what it meant to fight for survival, to overcome setbacks, and to push forward despite the odds. This resilience was something no other species in the galaxy could match. "It's not just about hope," Isaac said, his resolve growing. "It's about making that hope real. We have the tools, the people, and the will. Now we need the unity to back it up. And we will." Nissa gave him a rare, approving nod. "I believe you. The Federation will be watching, but you have already made a strong impression. Now it's time to show that humanity can lead, not just follow." Isaac smiled, feeling the weight of the journey ahead, but also the spark of determination that had carried him this far. "We'll show them, Nissa. We'll show the galaxy what humanity can do." Months passed, and humanity's role in the Federation began to take shape. The initial excitement and skepticism surrounding Earth's membership had shifted to genuine respect. Human diplomats worked tirelessly to build relationships with alien species, offering their expertise in areas such as conflict resolution, resource management, and technological development. Isaac himself continued to travel between Earth and Federation space, meeting with leaders, attending summits, and facilitating crucial negotiations. Despite the progress, tensions still existed. Not all factions in the Federation were convinced that humanity could live up to its newfound status. There were whispers of doubts, concerns about humanity's long history of conflict, its unpredictability, and its relatively young technological development. But Isaac had learned that doubt wasn't something to be afraid of. It was a challenge, one that humanity would meet head-on, as they always had. And then, a year after the peace agreement with the Zrathians and Ctherii, Isaac received an unexpected invitation to a major diplomatic summit in the heart of the Federation's capital. It was a prestigious event, one attended by the leaders of the most powerful species in the galaxy. As Isaac stood before the grand doors of the council hall, he couldn't help but reflect on how far humanity had come. He had stepped into the unknown, unsure of what the future held. But now he stood as an equal among the galaxy's most respected diplomats. Humanity was no longer just a curiosity or a lesser species. They were players in a much larger game, and they had proven that their greatest strength wasn't their technology, their military, or even their resources. It was their ability to adapt, to unite, and to hope. Isaac stepped through the doors, his head held high. This was humanity's moment, and they would take it. The galaxy was vast, but humanity had found its place within it. The journey wasn't over, but it had only just begun. And with every challenge, humanity would prove its worth, because hope, after all, was the greatest weapon of all. The end. Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stellar HFY content. Ring that bell to stay updated, and we'll see you next time.